Waju Nindawe Magana Duke, Nimiana Kudukai, Indigenous Cause, Ozawa Ganu Dodem, Odawa Minwa, Ojibwe Minwa, Potawatomi Minwa, Sachungu, Lakota, and Anishinaabe Clay and Dow. Peshabitown, Michigan, Induljiba, Apache, Oklahoma, Indida, Shaganashi Mulwin, Ajinna. Hello, my relatives. My name is Dancing Cloud Woman. I'm also called Monica Jo Raphael. I was just sharing my last name, a story about my last name. And a lot of people call me Monica Raphael. And that sounds real exotic or I don't know, very foreign. But my last name is pronounced Rayfield. And so, like many, many Native American people, Indigenous people, especially in the United States, the BIA came in and told us that our Anishinaabe names were not okay, and that we had to change our names. And so my great-great-grandfather, his name was Rayfield, meaning like the sun, how the sun rays looked on the field. And when they were translating to the government, to the BIA, and telling them, you know, that was his name, and his last name was Gagakshi. And Gagakshi translates to raven in our language. And so they told him his name couldn't be that any longer, and that he was now going to be Joseph Rayfield. But they spelled it very French, very Spaniard, Raphael. So I always try to share how we pronounce our name. And I really correct people when they, you know, they call me Monica Raphael. Because it's bringing recognition, it's bringing honor, you know, to my ancestors that, that make me who I am. And so that's, you know, that's happened to lots of Native people, a lot of Indigenous people. You know, the government came in and took so much away from us. Took, you know, just like what the panel said, you know, took our land away, abused our land resources, and we as Indigenous people, you know, are always thinking about how we can make things better and how we can make sure that these resources are here for my grandchildren's great-great-grandchildren. So that's really, you know, as a porcupine quill artist, as a land-based artist, as a cultural bearer, that's what I really try to promote. Last weekend, I was so blessed. I was so fortunate. I went to an art show in Sulphur, Oklahoma. It's called the Artesian Art Festival. It was their 10th year, and it's sponsored by the Chickasaw Nation of Oklahoma. And as an artist, like many of y'all know, there's times when we have lots of money, and there's times when we don't have enough. And so I spoke into the universe as I was driving real early in the morning to that art show to turn in my competition piece. And I spoke into the universe, and I manifested what I wanted to happen. And I said, Gajay Manidu, I am going to win Best of Show. I am going to do that. And I wasn't trying to be not humble, or I wasn't trying to be arrogant. It was just me and my little dog in the car. But I said, when you speak things into the universe, and when Creator God, Gajay Manidu, whatever you choose to call him, hears that. And if you are true to your teachings and live a good way, those things are going to happen for you. And so I dropped off my piece, and then that part of Oklahoma is unbelievably beautiful. And where I live, sometimes I don't think it's very pretty. It's farmland, it's desert, and it's not anything like where I come from. And but this place in southwestern Oklahoma, Sulphur, Oklahoma, looked very much like the Woodlands. I really had things that I needed to do, but I didn't do them. I went in the woods, I walked in the woods, and my little dog, Oscar, and I just explored the whole day. Then we went back to our hotel, got ready, and went to the Best of Show reception. And when I walked inside there, it was like this, a conference room. And I walked in, and I was all alone. I didn't have my companion with me. I didn't have any family members. And I looked right away where the beadwork and quillwork section was, and I didn't see my piece of art. And I thought, oh, they probably moved it, because that happens a lot in art competitions. Who's ever in charge thinks that they know kind of more than the artist. And they might say, oh no, that's not beadwork or quillwork. That's diverse arts. That has so many different pieces of materials to it. So I thought, oh, it just must have moved to diverse arts. I walked around and looked some more at all the other award winners. And then finally walked to the diverse, and I was like, gosh, where's my hat? Where's my hat? And then I went and walked around, and I seen the podium, I seen the stage, and there was my hat. And I knew right away what that meant. That meant that I won. And my financial problems of that day were cured. So the reason why I want to share that was that for all of you guys, when you're looking towards what you wrote in your application, what you want to come to be, speak that into the universe. Write it down in your journal. Just, every morning you wake up, because it will happen. I know it will happen, because it happened for me. And I still, every day, continue to get some kind of blessing. So this picture that I'm sharing up here, and I titled it, Who I Am. And as an Anishinaabe, we follow our father's clan. We're a patrilineal tribe. And my father is from the Golden Eagle clan. And so I am from the Golden Eagle clan. My Yahoo name, I named myself Ginukwe, because Ginu in our language is Golden Eagle. And so this piece kind of was my boost, was my realization that I must, or I have, some real talent in porcupine quillwork. My very first art show that I applied to was SWIA, and that was at the encouragement of my daughter. My daughter is an accomplished beadwork artist, and she was already doing it. And I went there and just to support her in 2017. And she sold out on her booth before noon. And she said, "Mom, I know you have stuff. I know you do. You always have something to sell." And I was like, oh gosh. And I did. I had a necklace. I had some dentilia earrings. I had, a few quill earrings. I said, "Yeah, I do." And she said, "Bring them, hurry, bring them. I have nothing else, and people keep coming." And so I brought them. And so we broke the rules, because you're not supposed to do that. I don't know if anybody's in here from SWIA, left from SWIA. I hope not. But so I gave her those pieces, and she sold them. And she said, "Mom, you can do this too. You better apply." So I did. I didn't do a competition piece then. 2018. I didn't know what that meant. She forgot to tell me all about that, until I got here. And she said, "Mom, you have to enter something." I entered a pair of earrings, but those pair of earrings got me my first big collector who has spent an enormous amount of money on art from, purchasing pieces of art for me. The following May, I entered the Woodland Indian Art Market. And the Woodland Indian Art Market is sponsored by the Oneida Nation in Green Bay, Wisconsin. And in order to enter that market, you have to be of a woodland tribe, specifically from the Great Lakes area. And so by then I was starting to learn, what it entailed to be an artist. And I took this piece, the piece that I made, to kind of who I am. I'm from the Golden Eagle clan. I call myself Ginokoi. That's the name I gave myself. And I love golden eagles, So this piece really talked about who I am. And that piece won Best of Show. And that was my first market that I really got serious about. And I thought, oh, wow. And then I entered 2 other pieces, and they both got first place ribbons. And I was just kind of like, whoa, what's going on? What's happening? Like, I don't know. I was so, I don't know, clueless, I was really clueless. So the next show I did was the Idle Jork in Indianapolis, Indiana. And I made a cuff. And that piece won Best in Jewelry against all the amazing and fabulous turquoise and silver and real gold and diamonds jewelry artists that were there. And I was blown away again. I just I was clueless, that a piece of art from our earth, could that's very traditional, kind of turned contemporary, could win. So I've been successful, that summer, SWIA came around, and I won Best in Beadwork and Quillwork for another piece that comes up later. So it was kind of a whirlwind, it was shocking, it was a true validation, to what I decided to do. And so that's just a little bit who I am. My father, is Anishinaabe. He's Ottawa Chippewa Potawatomi. And he was born and raised Shawnee, Michigan. He moved to Grand Rapids, Michigan to raise me and my sister. And then my mother, she was born in her home, delivered by her dad in Mission, South Dakota. And they were horse people, rodeo people, cow people, and the stories that I've been told, it was bad snowstorm, and they couldn't go get a midwife or go to the hospital or because of the snowstorm. So my grandpa had to deliver my mom, and all he ever delivered was cows. And so when you deliver a cow, you reach up inside of them and you pull them out by their feet. And so that's what he did to my grandma. Reached up inside of her and pulled my mom out by her feet. Just power of prayer, power, faith is why my mom's here. My mom, is a old school Indian lady, and she's a true stand by your man. She married my dad, who's an Anishinaabe, and it was his duty to raise us in the way that he wanted. So I was raised very traditional Anishinaabe. I know all my Sicangu Lakota relatives, but I don't know a whole lot about being Lakota. I don't know how to speak that language, other than a few words that everybody probably knows how to say. But I am who I am. So I want to talk a little bit about where I call home. And the reason why I want to talk about that is lots of reasons. So my home and homelands will always be in the woodlands of the Great Lakes, where birch bark trees adorn the forest, where porcupines roam freely and sometimes fall victim to trucks and vehicles. My porcupine quill work brings new life to roadkill. As I don't believe in hunting unless I'm going to eat the animal that I hunted, I surely could not eat my best friend God. A long time ago, though, when my children were small and we powwowed all over Turtle Island, while attending a powwow in Whitefish Bay, Ontario, which is in northwestern Ontario. Some people know it as the home to the Jingle Dress. My host family was avid hunters, and they had every kind of meat you can think of. And to show their hospitality, they put a spread of all the wild meats that they had hunted for us to feast on. one of the meats was porcupine. And, being raised traditional, you don't say no. You don't, if somebody's offering you fruit, that's disrespectful. So I ate it. Ew, it wasn't good. And some people really like it, I guess. But I thought it was extremely oily, greasy, and it surely didn't taste like chicken. So often, wild meats, people say, oh, it just tastes like chicken. No, it didn't taste like chicken. So in 2014, my husband, who's Comanche, inherited his parents' home place. His parents, it was his grandparents' original land allotment. And we packed up for Michigan, and we moved to Oklahoma. We sold everything, out of our home that didn't really, wasn't sentimental, like the furniture, dishes, all that kind of stuff. And we packed up a big moving trailer truck, and we moved to Oklahoma. And I don't know. It's not like my homeland. I was sad. About a year into it, I just said, I need to go back home. And I guess if you don't want to go with me, then I guess I just need to go back home. And he kind of said, well, what do you miss? What's wrong? And I said, there's no trees. So he's such a good person, good man. He said, well, we were up in Minnesota, and he said, we can go to the Mall of America, or we can go buy trees. I said, well, let's go buy trees. So we went to a nursery that wasn't very far from Red Wing, Minnesota, and the back roads. We bought a whole bunch of trees. We bought plum trees, hybrid sugar maples because of the climate in Oklahoma, so that they wouldn't have to go to the freezing point like they do up north. So they don't produce sugar. We brought flat cedars, and the guy, he wrapped them in sheets and took them and put them in the back of our truck so that they were protected, so they wouldn't get wind blown while we traveled back to Oklahoma. So we planted all those trees in our yard, and pretty passionate about my trees. I feed them. I even talk to them too, but they're thriving, except for our cedars, our flat cedars, got taken out by Oklahoma weather's really strange, and we flooded from the rains, and it was too much water for them, and so they died. But so it did. Even with my trees, it still didn't feel much like home. During the pandemic, I was about ready to run out of porcupine quills, and you couldn't you couldn't travel. This was June. This was kind of early pandemic. June 2020. It was early. I couldn't travel up north. And one day we were going to Lawton, which is the big town near where we live, and we're driving down the road, and I was really complaining how I was almost out of quills. What was I going to do? I even thought about, I didn't think about it. I was going to pay, which I thought was crazy, $150 for a half-gallon bag of quills from some people in North Dakota who were selling quills. And on that trip, there was a porcupine on the side of the road. And I thought, what the heck? This is like 2020, southwestern desert Oklahoma. And it's like crazy heat, I don't know, probably 90, 100 degrees. And I thought, what the heck? I turned around and I went back. Oh, and I was talking to my mom on the phone. And I said, Mom, I got to go. I think I seen a porcupine. I turned around and I went back. And sure enough, it was a big porcupine. And it was the kind that we have in Michigan. Real white and really thick black tips. And I thought, dang, this porcupine came all the way down from Michigan to find me. And because I had been living there for, almost 6 years, and never seen a porcupine, And so I loaded up that porcupine, I loaded it up, gagged, and took him home and cleaned him. And that's when I finally called Oklahoma home. So, just like they shared in my introduction, my real inspiration, my greatest gift are my grandchildren. I'm sure I probably said when I first became a mom that was my greatest gift at that time. But as you grow and age, as life changes, only another grandmother could understand the fulfillment of being a grandma. That could understand, the pride that your grandchildren bring to you. My grandson, he's 13. He's an award-winning artist. 13 years old, he blows my mind. He just blows my mind of what he's accomplished at this young age. And, but not only the fact of how talented he is, but his spirit about him. And how he's made his mark in this art world, in this competition art world, how has so many friends, how he looks up to such amazing artists, and how in return those amazing award-winning artists look up to him. I'm just so proud of him. He just teaches me so much, And then I have my granddaughter. She's 12. And she lives in Fort Hall with her mom. We get her in the summer. We get her in May as soon as school's out. And she just amazes me because she really looks like me. My son says she sounds like me. And my daughter-in-law, she'll always be my daughter-in-law, even though they're not together, says, man, she really acts like you. And I was like, oh, geez. But she's an amazing little quill worker already at 12. And she was about 10, and in Fort Hall, they were traveling, and she seen a porcupine alongside the road, and she insisted to her stepdad and her mom that she pull over and she get that porcupine because her grandma needed it. And she was like, they were telling, no, what are you going to do? And she said, my grandma needs this. I know how to do it. She taught me. And that summer prior, me and Adrian and her had cleaned, along with my dad, had cleaned a bunch of porcupines. So she did know what was doing. So she took that porcupine home and she cleaned it. And she sent that box of quills to me. And Idaho has prize, long, skinny, white quills. They have that dye so good. And so that piece in the middle is a special piece because that piece is made from those quills. And that piece has so much meaning to it. That piece talks about a ceremony that we do for our young girls called the berry fast. So when our young girls mature and get their first moon time, their first period, they're given the opportunity. Nowadays, we let them choose to go on a berry fast, and they abstain from berries for a whole year. And they're presented to our community after they completed their first cycle, and they're celebrated. And they take an oath, they take a vow to abstain from those strawberries, and they're fasting over Mother Earth so that fruit will be here forever. So which is very sacred to us as Anishinaabe. And so they fast over, that whole year. They give up berries of all sorts. And when they come into that first circle with the community, they come in and they're very modestly dressed. They just wear a dress like pictured here, but it would just be like a dark colored kind of calico fabric. They're veiled so you don't see their face. And they come in, and they might come in barefoot if they don't have moccasins, but if they have, they had a family member, maybe their mom, their grandma could make them moccasins, they'll come in with a pair of moccasins. And they're let in. And then 1 year later, when they break their berry fast, they come in and they're all adorned with the finest that their mom, their grandma might have created for them. And so this piece is what would have been created for somebody who completed their berry fast. So a lot of my art, I really try to tell a story. One of my Anishinaabe teachings, I'm reflected back to what the panelists talked about, with being land-based art, with, porcupine quillwork is very traditional art. It was a pre-contact art form. It was done prior to beads. It's one of the oldest art forms. It's how, many tribes adorned clothing, adorned very sacred clothing, war clothing, ceremonial clothing, So I really try to send that message, about how we need to take care of the earth, how we need to live. I try to instill my teachings in my art in a way that I can share that with community. So after working most of my adult life, my background is in early childhood education. That's what I went to school for a long time ago. I taught Head Start. I was kind of in the era where we really started including the traditions, the cultures, of our people into teaching. I did that, and then I took a break from that because my youngest child wasn't welcome to go to the same school where I taught at, so I didn't have any place for him to go. So I said, well, I'm going to go home and take care of my own kids. And so I did that. And then they started getting a little bit older, where they wanted to play sports, they wanted to play hockey, they wanted to be ballerinas, they wanted, to do all these kinds of things. They needed braces. So I went back to work. And when I went back to work, I went to work for my tribe. And I created a prevention program. I wrote a curriculum called Minimbumadzuin Hoop Dance Society. And I got a lot of federal funding, millions of dollars. And we had the most fabulous prevention program that became a model program for SAMHSA. It was all about how could I bring change to my community. We had a 50% graduation rate, on-time graduation rate. We had an enormous amount of minor possessions. We had deaths as a result of underage drinking. It was sad, and we're small in comparison to a lot of tribes. Our reservation only has about 1,800 people on the reservation, and at that time there was only about 450 youth. So those statistics, were so alarming when you look at it statistically. And so I worked real hard and was really passionate. We trained our youth, much like, what Steve talked a lot about. We did this. We trained them to learn about the hoop. We trained them to be hoop dancers. We trained them to be respectful of themselves, to honor themselves, to respect themselves, to exceed. We brought them to the herd, and we kind of monopolized the competition there for many years. And we even heard, I used to overhear, those kids from Grand Traverse are back, And we had, I don't even know how many world champions. I can't even think. But some of these world champions were children who came from real broken homes. They lived in foster care, but they learned how to dance, and they learned how to dance really good. And I'm just so proud of those accomplishments. But I was passionate about creating this community change. It was true data-driven change. I was partnering with SAMHSA, who was big about, they would give us money, but we had to document, our community. We had to document our problems. We had to have data to back up everything. And so in Indian country, it's hard, when administrations change. Somebody might not agree with what you did or what you're doing, or maybe they get jealous, That's kind of the, nemesis in Indian country, jealousy. It's so rampant. And it got hard. So in 2018, I turned 54. And the data that I collected and that I finalized prior to leaving Michigan, my homelands, was the life expectancy. It really resonated with me of a GTB, Grand Traverse Band, Anishinaabe Kwe, the life expectancy was 74 years old from all the data that we collected. And I turned 54 in 2018. And I said, what if I'm one of those people? What if I've only got 20 more years to live on this earth? I don't want to work for the federal government. At that time, the administration changed, and we all know what happened when the Republican, I don't even like to say his name, Make America Great Again came in. We all know what happened, you know? I didn't want to work for SAMHSA anymore. Things changed. We couldn't do on-site technical assistance anymore. We had to do everything by the phone. Everything got cut. And so I said, you know what, I really want to try the artist thing. I really want to try it. And so I left my job, and that's what I did. I just dug in, full blown, you know, to follow my own dreams, you know, to take care of myself, to take care of my spirit. And later, and especially when I wrote my fellowship application to the First Peoples Fund, I realized that my art could create community change, just like the work I did in the communities. I didn't realize it until writing it and answering the questions. And so I just dove in, you know, head first. So one of the things that I really, you know, what I really want to share too with y'all is I feel like you're kind of going against your teachings. Like I just kept talking about myself right now, like, I don't know, sharing my accomplishments, bragging about myself. But as an Anishinaabe, as an Indian person, as an Indigenous person, we're taught to be humble. We're not taught to talk about ourselves. That was something that really, I really had to learn to do. And not to brag on yourself, you know? But in this world, and what I want to tell y'all is, it's okay to talk about yourself. It's okay to toot your own horn. It's okay to share your philosophies. It's okay to say, I won best of show. It's okay to say, I just created the most beautiful piece of art from the earth, and I want you to take care of the earth. It's okay to do that. Because you never know who's going to be in that room. You never know who you might be talking to. You know, they might be an art curator for the National Museum of American Indian. They might be the president of IAIA. They might be the president of First Peoples Fund. You never know. And that might be a connection to help you realize your dream. So I just want to say that don't be too proud and don't be too humble to toot your own horn. So, when Rachel invited me, she called me, and she's called me a few times just to kind of check in, to touch base. And I've seen her at different places, so I wasn't really, I don't know, I figured that they probably needed to collect some data, you know, on how I was doing. I don't know. So I was real excited. Hi, Rachel, how are you? And she invited me to be the keynote. And I was just I was really humbled. I was, oh my goodness, wow, yes, thank you. And wow, I'm so honored, I don't know how many times I said that, but I said it a bunch, I know I did. But I really thought long and hard on what I could say to a room full of talented Indigenous artists, culture bearers, and performers that you already don't know. So I thought about all the things that I wanted to ask an established artist when I first started. And sometimes those artists seem standoffish, those award-winning artists, those big-name artists in the art world. They really seem standoffish. I'm being so bluntly honest with y'all. They, I don't know, lack of better wording, are kind of stuck up, And so I wanted to ask them, well, how did you do this? How did you get there? How do you do, all these. And nobody would give me the time of day. Nobody did. But one person came to my booth at Swaya, and he lives here in this community in Santa Fe. He's a very, very accomplished beadworker and very good person. And he came to my booth. He brought the person who became my largest collector, who summered in Lenaw County, Michigan, where our reservation is, which is known for to be where the very, very, very wealthy, the Fords of Michigan, had summer homes. And he brought her to my booth. And he was just so awesome. And he told me, he gave me his card, and he said he was blown away by my work. And he told me, if I need anything, if I need to know how to do something, if I need to know how to price my things, if I need anything as I venture into this, to ask him. And so I built a relationship with him. And I really consider him my art mentor. He shared so many things with me. He showed, talked about pricing. Just because you win a bunch of awards, don't automatically think that you can attach this huge price to that piece now. Those were his exact words. Because the worst thing you can do as an artist is have a piece of art that you can't sell. So just because you have a big blue ribbon doesn't mean that it's now worth 3 times the amount that you originally priced it. So, those are one of the things that he shared with me. He shared with me to whatever I price, to leave it. If I say this piece is $500, you leave it at $500. If it's not selling, don't lower your price. Leave it at $500, because somebody will come along and buy it eventually. And if somebody doesn't come along, then you have a really awesome gift for somebody. But don't lower your price. Those are some of the things that I don't, who would know those things? You automatically think that, well, I want to price just like Jamie Okima. I want to price as high as her stuff, because I'm winning too, but it don't work like that. So my talk is really about kind of like my best practices, tips, as well as talking about myself, sharing, stories. And this, what I'm going to show you guys, is pretty cool. I am a porcupine quill artist. I use birch bark, which is the bark from a paper birch tree. It's a very beautiful, but yet very time-consuming art. A lot of the art is the know-how of how you gather the materials, knowing how to gather the birch bark, knowing how to gather the porcupine quills, knowing how to wash, dry, dye the quills. That's all a major part of the art. I was born and raised in Grand Rapids, Michigan. After I became an adult, I moved to Suttons Bay, and then I made my home in Peshabe Town proper. Peshabe Town was, our homelands. In 2014, I moved to Oklahoma, but I still go home quite often because that's where my birch bark grows, where porcupines live, where sweetgrass is plentiful. So much of my art, the materials I use for my art, I have to go and gather them. Traditionally, we get our inspiration from the flora and the fauna of the woodlands. One of the things that I kind of get my inspiration from is my traditional teachings, my traditional stories that I've been told. I made a shaker during the pandemic, and that shaker was titled, "He Carries Our Prayers." And so in that shaker, I told a teaching that I've been taught, that Creator sends one of his messengers or one of the beings, the eagle, to fly all over Earth, looking for Anishinaabe who are still trying to carry on our original teachings, Anishinaabe who are still trying to teach their grandchildren. So, my inspiration for this rattle shaker really comes from my life in Oklahoma. So they have a dance called the Gourd Dance, and it's a real beautiful dance, really, really beautiful dance. The white buffalo, to both my Anishinaabe and Lakota side, signifies hope. And so this piece really talks about that eagle flies around looking for prayers. And that white buffalo signifies hope that, our prayers have been heard. As an artist, a juried artist, you're looking towards pieces of work that maybe haven't been done before, or pieces that you haven't seen done in your type of art. You're trying to strategically think of something that would give you the best chance to maybe win a ribbon. As far as working on projects, I set goals for myself. I'll say, like, Monday, Tuesday, I'm gonna create quill earrings. Wednesday, I'm gonna sew. Thursday, I might say that this is the day that I work on my competition piece, because those pieces, the pieces that you entered in the juried art show, are very important, because those are large pieces that take a long time, but they're important pieces because they're the ones that get the word out of what kind of art you do. You have to be have really good time management skills when you're an artist, because you have to have inventory, which is your bread and butter, that pays for the art shows, and then you also have to have your competition pieces. So you have to treat it just like a regular job. Sometimes it's like a regular job plus overtime. I love what I do. It's a balance of me creating, and then it's also a balance of me sharing. sharing my work, but also sharing my knowledge and teaching it to others. You know, I talked a little bit about already, you know, how you price something. You know, if anybody really wants more detail, you know, I can share that with you. But you have to put a price on your art. You have to put a price on your time. And you can't just, for me, I can't just put that time on the piece that I created. I have to count the harvesting of the quills, harvesting of the bark. So you make sure that you do all of that. And then marketing's huge. You have to market yourself though. You know, nobody's going to do that for you. Maybe you might get fortunate to some of these relationships. Somebody's going to write an article about you. Take advantage of that. You know, take advantage of the time. Talk as much as you can so that that article can be big. And then branding. Branding's so important. Brand your, you know, whether you're branding your name or branding a business name is so important. Making sure so that everybody knows, you know, who you are. You know? I know a lot of people know who I am now because I branded, because I made sure to attach my name to that same logo over and over and over. And then I just want to share this with you. I think this is something that's really, really important as an artist, is to make sure to look and you write a good mission statement for yourself as an artist. You know, mine is to continually create work that is infused with a spirit that generates community empowerment to celebrate and sustain the teachings of our ancestors for future generations. So usually you start something with your mission, but if you read, you know, that's really what I talked about. You know, I talked about how I want to make sure that this is here for my grandchildren's great-great-grandchildren. And an artist statement is really important. But for everything that you might apply for, or for everything that you're doing, you might create a new artist statement for each of those things. You don't have to keep using the same one over and over. Whatever that objective is, you might change that. These are just some photos. You know, I really had to look at how do I build community? Build a community of my art. So I teach others. You know, one of the things that I'm pretty passionate about living in Oklahoma is the Oklahoma Anishinaabe who were removed there. Their casinos, their cultural centers are all adorned with our traditional woodland art, their quill boxes, all of this, but nobody knows how to do it. And it broke my heart, so I reached out and I taught them. And then just how I built my business, how I did it. You know, it was a lot of work. It was a lot of time. It was a lot of late nights. So teaching. I like to share this picture. I wanted to really share. This is what I got with my first People's Fund Fellowship in 2021. I got an online classroom so that I could teach online, so that I could make an income, you know, while we were suffering with the pandemic. I have an awesome laptop. I have an awesome computer. I have an awesome document camera. That document camera is awesome. So, and then just diversify your art. You know, I made fabric. I did fast fashion. I don't think I'll do it again. It kind of contradicts my thought on what the carbon footprint that I'm leaving, but I tried it. And expand your knowledge, learn something new. I learned how to tie a roach, make roaches. Probably the most important thing I want to tell you guys is that we belong. And have the courage to not just apply for Indigenous art shows, Indigenous grants. Apply for those grants that are for everybody, because we belong. And that's what I'm going to do next week. I'm going to go to the Smithsonian with people, all different colors of people, and represent Indigenous people. So I want you all to do that too. So, Chimiguach, and very important word in our Anishinaabe-Moan language is Ayam Guamazin, be determined to succeed. So.